we're so happy that you can join us here today on a Saturday morning. Really appreciate you making time for this event. Thank you to each and every student that has joined. And I'm really happy to have Miss Rose Zach here today. She's going to be hosting the breakout session in this room. Okay. So Rose is the manager for admissions recruitment at NSCAD University, right? Now, NSCAD actually has a long history of progressive art making. They were established way back in 1887, and they've been shaping art, design, and craft in Canada ever since, right? They're based in Halifax, so it's a lovely port city, which feels like an urban center. At the same time, it feels like a really friendly small town, right? And interestingly, Halifax is home to a very lively, creative community. So when you're studying in Halifax, the good thing is that you will hobnob with a lot of creative people who like to kind of experiment, be bold, and really make a difference in the world of art and design. Rose's session today is focusing on portfolio tips and submissions. Now, I think that is such an interesting topic. I think a lot of students would appreciate hearing from Rose as to what they can do to design a really exciting portfolio, the do's, the don'ts, any best practices. So we're really looking forward to hearing from you, Rose, and I'm sure the students will appreciate this session. I think it's just so important for them. A small reminder to students that we have a breakout session at 11 a.m. in breakout room 3, and we are automatically going to shift all the users to breakout room 3 at 11 a.m. So don't be surprised if at sharp 11 a.m. if you are just whisked away to breakout room 3. So Rose, over to you. Please begin, and I wish you all the best for today and for your session. And save some time for Q&A. I'm sure students would like to ask you a few questions after your presentation. So over to you,
Terrific.
Rose. Take care.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. It's late in the evening here, but I'm excited to see you where it's morning. As they said, I'm here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is on the Atlantic coast of Canada. A really wonderful creative community, relatively moderate climate for Canada, and a really strong arts community and history. So I'm going to jump right in and start sharing my presentation, and we'll get started. And the way I'm going to approach this today, is I'm going to just talk generally about some general tips that I think might help you as you think about applying to art and design schools in Canada. And then I'm going to talk specifically about our requirements as an example of things to look for when you're preparing your application. So these are really tips to make your portfolio great and strengthen it, and make your application the best it can be. So let's start with the very beginning. What is a portfolio? It's not something everybody completely understands, so I think it's worth starting from there. And really what a portfolio is a visual record of an individual, your curiosity, your exploration, your skills, and your knowledge. So what is my first tip? My first tip to you is to research carefully the portfolio requirements for your program and the institutions you are interested in. These can really vary from school to school, so it's important that you know exactly what is being asked of you. So one of the key things to consider is important deadlines. Know the semester you want to start school. For many, that's September. That's when school tends to start, September or January, which is our winter semester. Know that semester and know your deadlines, and also factor in your own timelines. Many schools have early deadlines, late deadlines, scholarship deadlines. You want to plan for enough time to submit your application, for it to be reviewed, to have an outcome, and then if accepted, which hopefully you are, to be able to plan for your move and prepare for your life for study in Canada. Next, and certainly most importantly, specific portfolio requirements. Every school takes a slightly different approach to their portfolio, and it's important that you customize your portfolio to reflect what is being asked for. Some may ask for very specific types of drawings, like self-portraits or still lives or even perspective drawings. Some might present a challenge, like asking you to draw something in your life with a certain kind of theme or approach. I know that NSCAD even used to ask for a drawing of a cauliflower, which they don't do anymore, but it's something they used to do. So make sure you understand those specific requirements. You also may want to consider what you're applying for and how those requirements change. So if you're applying from high school to go into an undergraduate program versus applying from an existing program, which is called advanced standing, those requirements are quite different from each other. So make sure that you understand exactly what is being asked for so you can customize the work you've done to suit it. Another important piece to consider is the number of works to include. Each institution will list a very specific range, usually too few, and your reviewer might think that you're actually not producing very much work. Too much, and it really won't feel like you've considered the amount of portfolios that have to be looked at. It's important to be able to edit your portfolio to reflect what is being asked for. Next, labeling and presentation requirements. Schools are looking at hundreds and even thousands of applications, so it's important that your application and your portfolio are well organized, that your files are clearly labeled, and that anybody who looks at it knows exactly who you are and what they're looking at. And next, after that, special criteria. So those could include any number of things. Are they looking for work produced within a certain time frame, within 2 or 3 years? If it's older than 2 or 3 years, why did you feel like you needed to include it? Do they ask for a list of works? What is that? And does that include? And in all likelihood, they're asking for an application essay in addition to your portfolio. They really want to get to know you as an artist. And then, how are you going to get your portfolio to us? These days, portfolios are completely virtual for the most part. So you're looking at different kinds of formatting and file size restrictions that you have to consider. And often the thing I run into most is applicants unable to upload their portfolio documents, and it is usually file size. So pay close attention to that and make sure that your files and your documents match those restrictions. And if your files are too large and you don't have the technology to reduce those file sizes, there are certainly websites out there that will help you do that. Okay, so now that you've done your research on exactly what your portfolio contains, my next tip is it's important to plan your portfolio. You want to demonstrate your skills, your creativity, and most important, your willingness to try new things and explore. Then they want to see a range of mediums. Even if you have a really specific and strong interest in a particular thing, they really want to see, are you someone who will explore? Going to art school is about that. I would say a medium is like a tool in your toolbox as an art maker. And so they want to see, are you trying different tools? Are you trying new things? Really important to consider. And then, and I think really importantly, make sure that you're taking the time to create new artwork or improve existing pieces. Give yourself enough time once you know that deadline to really look through your work, see what you can do to improve them, see if you determine if you need to maybe make new artwork, do everything you can to make your portfolio the best it can possibly be. And most importantly, be original, be curious. Even though copying work, copying photos, copying styles of work you like may show a certain type of skill, your ability to duplicate something doesn't really tell us anything about you. So all it shows us is that you have a particular technical skill to copy something, and that's not generally it's not what is being looked for. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about original ideas. You may really love something, love a type of a style of art, a period of art, and a particular image, but you need to make it your own and make it clear that it's your own. Okay, so I talked generally about what to look for in those tips, and I'm going to use our requirements as an example. So you get a sense of exactly what it might include. And this is specific to NSCAD, but it may be different at another school. So important to think about. Okay, so I talked initially about important deadlines. For us, if you're thinking about applying for fall 2022, applications are actually already open. We're accepting applications now, though we have a scholarship deadline on March 1st. That is when most people apply with us, is that March 1 deadline, so that they can be considered for an entrance scholarship. And when is the final deadline? If the scholarship deadline isn't as important, you need to make sure you know that final deadline. And those deadlines mean those are when your completed applications have to be submitted. So not just your portfolio, but all other requirements, transcripts, admissions essays, anything else that is detailed has to be complete at that point, even to be reviewed. An incomplete application will not be reviewed or considered. So it's important that you understand that. In addition, expect 3 to 4 weeks response time for your undergraduate application. So plan for those sorts of timelines when you're applying. Okay, so next, specific portfolio requirements. So for us at NSCAD, your portfolio must incorporate at least 3 different mediums. So we don't ask for something specific. We recognize that artists work in all kinds of ways, all kinds of mediums. We really want to see, are you curious? Are you trying new things? That's what's most important to us. So I'm going to give you some examples of the mediums that people might use, but this is by no means an exhaustive list. This is just a starting point. I want you to think about all the ways in which you create work. There may be ways that you don't even think would apply, but they very well might. So this can include things like animation, cartooning, different types of drawing mediums like charcoal. People sculpt in cement. Writing is certainly part of it. Working in fiber with things like crochet and embroidery. Writing essays about art periods, art making, also important. You might work in film, digital or analog. You might be inspired by found materials all around you. They may be the jumping off point for work. You may be interested more in the design side of things with graphic design or graphic novels, illustration. You might like pen and ink, different kinds of printmaking or displays or knitting. Lithography is another print process, metalworking, and so on. You get the picture. There are so many mediums that people use in making art. Some are rooted in wonderful craft histories. Some are rooted in sort of found objects and processes. Some only exist virtually. So it's important to think about all those possibilities. We see just about everything. I've certainly seen things like fantasy makeup and nail decorations. Somebody might decorate their skateboard or their bike. All of those factor into your creative output. So that list is just the beginning for you. So next, number of works to include. Our range is 10 to 20 submissions of completed or previous work from the last 3 years. Anything older than that, you should really explain why it's important to include it. 10 to 20 submissions is the range. Anything less than 10, and I don't think you'll have enough there to really show what you're capable of. Anything more than that really requires you to do some editing to focus on your strongest work. And part of this portfolio includes what we call your sketchbook. So as much as your portfolio is meant to be a more completed body of work that you spend time on, your sketchbook is an opportunity to get a sense of how you work through your ideas. Do you make notes? Do you test out different materials and processes? Do you source images and fabric that might inspire you if you're making clothing? And do you sort of scrapbook art that you like out there? It's really meant to give insight into your thinking, into your process, and into your work. And keep in mind, these portfolios are being looked at by artists just like you, now practicing artists who were potentially who were high school students once and know exactly where you're coming from. So don't feel self-conscious about your sketchbook. It is not meant to be finished. It is meant to be just an insight into how you work through your ideas. Okay, labeling. So, as I said earlier, we have many, many applications. You want to make sure every document in your application is clearly labeled and understood. And so that includes naming individual files. What is the name of the work? Or if it's just a number of works, is it portfolio? Is your last name and first name, are they included in it? These all are important components to your application. And then formatting and file size restrictions. Some art schools use a format called slideshow. There are other formats. For us, applicants upload their images. So we accept either individual JPEGs and a 500 kilobyte file size, or combined PDFs to be uploaded, and 2 megabyte file size. So those are important to know. And as I said earlier, if we run into issues, or if you're running into issues with getting your files uploaded, it is generally about file size or format. Now, if your work is video-based or recording, you wouldn't be able to upload it. Those file sizes would be much too large. So in that case, you would include a link on a document, and it would direct them to a YouTube video or some sort of platform. Some applicants want to include a link to their website, but we really recommend that you not do that, because you also run the risk that your website link might not work, that it might not be active, that it might be hard to navigate. So it's important that you follow the guidelines as given. Okay, so that's the end of that, but I am going to just take a minute to share a great video I found that I think might also be helpful too. There we go.
We are looking for drawing. We're looking for the ability to coordinate hands, eye, and mark making. We're looking for invention. And we're looking for commitment.
I'm looking for something I maybe haven't seen before.
This is your sketchbook.
Yeah, sure. I like it. It's a very unusual format.
It's quite historical city.
Yeah, historical and modern.
Yeah. And the skyline is quite beautiful.
Just show what's in your mind. Don't show what tutor wants to see, but show yourself.
I would advise everybody to keep a kind of visual record or a big sketchbook, I would say, where you register of every idea that you have, even if you think it's not important. Because sometimes you think about something, maybe the idea is not so good, but you can develop from there.
So every stage of the process, right from the beginning of an idea.
Yes. So I started working with newspaper,
Yeah.
pretty obvious, and cutting shapes of letter,
Okay.
trying to combine it together.
With those negative and positive.
Yes.
The person that you're talking to has no idea what you've been doing, so you've got to back this all up with sketchbooks so that you can show your whole thought process.
So this is the sketchbook that you're working on. This is your ideas book.
We want to see the process. We want to see what leads to an idea.
You may have decorated your skateboard. Don't be afraid to show that work alongside more traditional forms.
I was making a comic with my friend. At the last minute, I just slipped in the sketchbook that I'd been doing. And then they picked up on it and they seemed very excited about it. And I was like, oh yeah, well, this is what I've been doing in my spare time.
What's the strongest fashion aspect of your portfolio?
Well, for this one, I'm doing mainly designing for accessories. So I'm looking into handbags. This one is a misshapen animal, and I'm using its head to be the handle of the bag. The students in China are told what to do, and they are really focused on skills and technicals, not that much into thinking and research.
The underlying thing we're looking for all of our courses is the potential to go on.
Our job is not really to judge. Our job is to enable people to discover their future.
Okay, so I think that's another presentation that should give you a pretty good sense of what portfolios require. And so what you saw there in that video is something called a portfolio day, and that's another important thing to look for. Most schools have what are called open days or portfolio days. And now, certainly in part due to this pandemic, those are virtual events. So for us, we hold one in October and in February. So it's an opportunity to have a one-on-one meeting with a faculty member to look at your portfolio, to give you feedback. And sometimes it's surprising. Sometimes what you think is your strongest work is not what they respond to. And they recommend, oh, go in this direction. So they can be invaluable experiences to have. So if you can find a way to attend these virtual events, I would encourage you to join us. And some recruitment and admissions staff will even do a portfolio review for you over an appointment too. And that feedback can be really valuable. Okay, so I see we've got a question here based on what will be the scholarship criteria. So the scholarship criteria is the total strength of your application. So it's an important combination of your portfolio, your transcripts, and those are equally weighted. And so you want to have strong academics and a strong portfolio. Those are the two most critical pieces. And then an essay, a compelling essay. We want to know why art school? Why NSCAD? What's the compelling reason for us to offer you a place at our school? So it's those things together, which is why it's so important to really know exactly what's being asked for in your application. The portfolio open days, generally, yes. And so what I would recommend that if there are schools you're interested in, get on their mailing list, go find their website, create a portfolio, and that will help make sure that you're aware of any events they might be holding. It's also an opportunity for you to get to know their schools, their cities, get a sense of these institutions, these communities. You may know a little, you may not know, you may know a lot about them, but it's an opportunity to get to know if that's a good fit. Okay, so just going through the list. How much weightage do our grades hold? For us, your portfolio and your transcripts are equally weighted. So a strong transcript results in a higher score. So does a strong portfolio. So there's equal weight. What is the maximum amount of scholarship we can get? The scholarships range from a few $100s, that's Canadian dollars, to full tuition. for 4 years. And there are only a few of those full tuition scholarships, and they go to a very small selection of candidates. Those candidates really, we call it the Creative Innovator Scholarship. So those candidates are really the best of our candidates. Let me just see what else have we got. What are the requirements for previous background as undergraduate to apply for post-graduation? Oh, okay, we have some questions about graduate studies. And so I've been focusing mostly on undergraduate applications here. So for graduate studies, what is quite different is they want to see an established practice and a clear plan of study. So graduate school isn't just a continuation of developing new skills. At this point, you would have some sort of established practice and on the go, and you want to apply with a really clear plan of how you want to use your time and what you want to achieve with that. So it's a much more rigorous portfolio requirement. Okay, so I'm just seeing this other question. If a website has been created with a compilation of works, will that be considered as a portfolio? I would always recommend that you research and apply with the format that the school offers. When you send a link to a website, you run the risk that it's a dead link, that your website might be difficult to navigate and they won't find what you're looking for. People do it, but there are risks involved in doing it. So I do always recommend that you build a portfolio that complies with the requirements of the school, but you could also include a link to your portfolio to your website as well. But if that's the only way for your work to be seen, you are running risks. Okay. What are the requirements for film? That's a really great question. So film is a much more demanding medium, and so involves much more time. So in the case of film, you would include on your list of works links to that work. So if you've made, and so knowing how much work is involved in film, you may not have 10 to 20 works, you may have 5 videos, but and so include those links. But you also might want to include preparatory materials for films. That might include storyboarding, scripts, set design, depending on the nature of your film. So keep all that in mind. That film, that sort of final outcome, there's a lot of pre-production work involved, and that is considered your sketchbook. Okay, what are the requirements for postgraduate fashion? Again, what they want to see is that you have an established portfolio and practice, and that you are applying with a really particular objective in mind of where you want to take that practice and what you want to do with it. Okay, what are the requirements for scholarship again? Our applications weigh transcripts and portfolios equally. So you want to have really strong transcripts and a really strong portfolio that reflects exactly what is being asked for. Diverse mediums, exploration, sketchbooks. They want to see you as somebody who is exploring, challenging themselves, working really hard to try new ideas. What are the requirements for MFA in animation or real illustration? Well, for us, we have 3 graduate degrees. We have a Master's of Fine Arts in Studio, Master's of Design and Interdisciplinary Design, and Masters of Art in Art Education. So the animation or illustration could fall either into design or fine art. So one of the other things I would suggest you look for are graduate information sessions. So we're having one in, I think, next week. And that's a great place to get a sense of, does my practice fall into fine art or does it fall into design? And there may be a blur between those two, but going to sessions like that really will help you give you a sense of where you might fit in a program. Okay, what are the requirements for someone who has a bachelor's degree in architecture but is willing to do postgraduate in industrial design? I know with our design program, we have people who come from all aspects of design, certainly architecture being one of them. So again, I think with design in particular, I think they want to see a certain level of skill, of established process, and of a plan of what you want these graduate studies to offer for you. What are the portfolio requirements for fashion, branding, and communication? Well, I think that leads us to an important topic too when you're looking at art schools is, do they offer what you are looking for? Fashion branding, we don't, I wouldn't say we offer fashion branding or communications other than it is part of an overall program. So it's important to really investigate the programs that are being offered and do they fit what you want to accomplish. So we offer a fashion and textiles program that focuses on building a collection and developing strong sewing and garment construction skills. And so does that fit with your own personal goals? What are the requirements for the undergrad in fine arts? So I went through the portfolio presentation, so that's a key part. The other part, weighed equally, include your transcripts. So we like to see your academics, your ability to take on the academic side of studies. So as much as art school and design school is about studio-based work and creative work, it's also about history and writing and being able to communicate your ideas. So that's an important part of it. And your essay, they want to know why our school. What are the requirements for PG and admission in animation? What I would recommend is really researching schools to find the programs that fit for you. We don't have a major in animation. We have a minor in animation as part of design. So that's an important distinction to understand. For us and for many art schools in Canada, especially art and design universities, every degree starts with what's called a foundation year. So that's a year in which students take some core courses. All students are required to take these courses. And then it's a year of exploration. And then it's really in year 2, 3, and 4 that students really focus in on their area of interest. Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Any special requirements for transfer fashion students? That's a really great question. So there's definitely a difference between a foundation application and an advanced standing application. So in a foundation application, you're coming from high school, you're planning on doing that foundation year. But in an advanced standing application, I know India has some really excellent fashion schools and fashion program, you're asking to enter directly into second or third year of a program. So it's important to know how many transferable credits are possible for us. You can potentially transfer up to 75 of the 120 credits required to get your degree. So that means that's about 2.5 years worth. So if you're applying, let's say, to fashion, you really want to focus your application on fashion. And not only do you want to show you the creative side of what you've done, but what's really important is to be able to show the skills you've developed. So I would even encourage you to take a look at a program and get a better sense of what they would be expecting you to know. If you were going to start in second or third year, what are the skills that are required? So with fashion, they would expect to see a certain level of garment construction, of pattern, understanding of pattern making, things like that. So you really want a portfolio that shows very specific skills to that program. Should the portfolio be related to the course you're interested in? Yes and no. I mean, I think that most artists, most creative people do have a specific area of interest. I think it's important to share that. But at the same time, we want to see that you're willing to try new things. So if you're coming right out of high school, it's important for us that you have at least 3 mediums. I do find that most of the time, a fair amount of the portfolio may be one medium, clearly the subject or the medium that the applicant is really interested in. So it may be lots of paintings or lots of garments. But what they want to see is, are you also trying different things? Are you exploring different ways of doing things? If all your work is 2-dimensional, are you trying things that are 3-dimensional? Just to challenge yourself to explore. So I think that's part of what they want to see. What would be the educational and portfolio requirements for someone who might not be coming from the arts background, but wants to pursue a higher education in graphic design? Oh, I have a cat here and his little tail keeps showing up. Well, so in that case, the portfolio is still an important part. So I think I would suggest finding ways to develop that portfolio. Some may think about applying for more of a technical program. So some schools, generally not art and design schools, but community colleges, they will teach you how to learn those skills. You don't necessarily have to come with that ability, come with that portfolio, but with an art and design university, you typically do have to have some sort of creative output. So we have things like portfolio development courses. You may be able to find something like that in your community, but we're still looking for that portfolio. We're still looking for that work. So even if you haven't done any graphic design and that's an interest, they want to see that. Why graphic design? They want to see that creative output. What are the requirements for visual effects? Again, I would encourage you to look specifically into a school's programs to find those things out. For art and design universities, many of them in Canada, you're starting in that foundation year. So they're really just looking for a general portfolio at that point. A visual effects program, I would suggest you find that program and find out those requirements. What are the requirements for transfer students interested in graphic design? So generally speaking, if you want to be a transfer student in graphic design, much like the fashion program, you need to show a level of skill that you've already established through that program. So it may even be a good idea to look through your course list and include portfolio pieces that reflect what is covered in that course. So just referencing back to the fashion program, if you took a course in pattern construction, make sure you include pieces in your portfolio that reflect that. In my graphic design portfolio, should I keep more digital pieces or manual work? Either or. We know that artists are working in the virtual space, so whatever your output is, include that. But even digital work probably starts with a sketch. So that's a great place to show where an idea starts, whether it's just a little drawing, and where it ends up in that digital process. How much weighted do our grades hold? For us, they're equally weighted to your portfolio. So they're about 45% each. And lots of questions about specific programs. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in a very particular type of program, find the schools that offer them. and find out those requirements. They really vary from school to school. They vary based on whether you're coming from high school or an existing program. What is the maximum age? There isn't a maximum age. Um, really, I mean, most of our students do come or start when they're under 20, but we certainly have students who start later on. They may have different careers behind them. So it's not completely unusual to find students that are a bit more mature entering into these programs. Do extracurricular activities play an important role? Um, I think that may be something you can note in your essay, in your application essay that talks about, just gives a better sense of who you are and your experiences to include it. So if that's something you involve yourself in, by all means include it, though I wouldn't say specifically it is scored in any particular way, but I think a well-rounded applicant is always I think always has a better chance of success. Scholarships for postgraduate. Yes, the program that has the highest level of scholarship is our Master of Fine Arts. So that has a fairly robust scholarship, fellowship, teaching assistantships too. Whereas our Masters of Design and our Masters of Art Education have fewer scholarships. So that's important to find out. And I think, I don't know if you were here earlier, but many programs, many schools will have graduate info sessions. And for us, ours will include all of our graduate programs. And it's important to find out that specific information and even be able to compare programs. You may feel like you might fit, oh, maybe you'll fit in this program or that program. So some things that may influence your decision are things like scholarships and fellowships. Does art school usually have curation program? Yes, I would say so. So we have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Studio, a Bachelor of Arts, and so students do learn about curatorial practice. For us at NSCAD, we have a gallery where every student has an opportunity to have a show. And what can happen with that is part of having a show is learning to install, learning to curate. And so many people who go to art school take that curatorial stream, and our Masters of Art has a curatorial stream. So if in your undergraduate studies you realize that's your area of interest, there are ways to develop that. And there are opportunities as a student to develop that. How does living cost vary in Canada? Well, Canada is a medium-sized city compared to many of the other cities where art schools are. So comparatively, I think it's much more affordable. But again, another important thing to consider is that cost of living and cost of housing. Many international students will start in what's called a student residence. NSCAD's a small school. We don't have our own, but we partner with other universities in the city that are nearby, and students will start in residence. That means, they don't have to figure out furniture and pots and pans and groceries. It's all there for them. Well, they get to know the city, and they make friends and find roommates and plan for the following year. What documents should we provide in our transcript? You want to, most schools require what's called an official transcript. So that's an officially sourced transcript from your school. And so we want to see your grades, the proof that you've completed your program. If you're in a college or university program already and you're thinking about coming as a transfer student, you may be asked to provide more robust information, like the specific outcomes of your courses, so you can be considered for direct entry further along.